there's no hack to leadership development. So
Yeah.
hacks are good for a new app that helps you get more organized. But when it comes to the serious long-term important things in life, it's about consistently learning lessons and putting your shoulder to it. So
All right, Phil, I'm so excited to have a coach conversation. Just you and me. You have lots of warnings for us. You've seen a lot, and I'm so excited to just harvest some of that wisdom. There's a couple topics, I think that I'm seeing regularly, you face regularly that we have side conversations on, but just to capture some of these um for us to share with others, just to learn from each other. So I think there's an undercurrent of what we've seen, and this really becomes a superpower to strengthening leadership, to strengthening growth, and anticipating some of those stalls as uh, and I think is one of your superpowers specifically is this word that is not attractive in the church world whatsoever. It's not innovative, it's not creative, it's not groundbreaking. It's consistency.
mm,
But I know you've and I've talked about this a lot, is that there's such great strength and power in consistency. I would love for you to just share the heart behind that, what you've seen of how consistency plays an integral part of growth and development, and just maybe how you can encourage us to lock that in a little bit better, to stay more consistent, and
yeah.
what we could experience when we do that.
Well said. Like there's no fist bumps, there's no fist pumping or fist bumps at the meeting when you say like, we're going to focus on consistency. It's like, I'm never going to get a call from a book publisher. I may not anyways, but saying, we really just need you to consider doing a book on consistency because it will sell, zero copies. It's
Mm.
just, it's not, you said it well. It's not sexy. It doesn't feel always productive. It's hard and
Yeah.
it can be extremely boring at times too. Let's face it. But I think,
Well, especially for visionary leaders, for you know, we don't live in a we live in a very fast-paced culture now too. I mean, literally Instagram is insta, like it's instant. We're in a microwave situation. Like we want results right away, 10x it, all that stuff is like we're being bombarded with regularly. So in light of that, either being a visionary driven leader and not seeing the results right away, or working with one, how do I like
it's so funny. Yeah, I think I have a special um, foul disposition around the word hack right now, just because, like, if I hear more, like, what's a great hack, and I'm maybe it's because I'm bad at them or something, but there's some quick simple things you can do to get save yourself a couple hours doing something in leadership, but there's no hack to like I'm going to jump ahead in these areas, especially leadership development. So
yeah.
let's all get in hacks are good for a new app that helps you get more organized. But when it comes to the serious long-term important things in life, it's about consistently learning lessons and putting your shoulder to it. So
Yeah.
I think, I think leadership wise, I know it's one that I feel we've discussed that could really turn the tide for so many people is the consistency of when you do decide to implement something, letting it consistently working on it for a long period of time and letting it get great versus it's been out there for, this program for development has been out there for a week or a month or 2 months and it's not yielding fruit or it's not exactly what we think we need. And so we're going to shift and modify it, or we're going to do away with it and do something different. I think the casualty of that is shifting gears, is the last thing you want to do. So, like, cause that creates in a small and large organization, it creates a dip or a gap because it's just like in a car when you shift gears. There's not many manual transmissions out there anymore, but like when you go from first to second, you literally can feel you're in neutral for a second until the new gear picks up, and then it's kind of like it picks up again.
Yeah.
And yes, long term you're going faster, but there's a sacrifice for switching directions, switching gears, modifying things. There's a time and effort. So I think, you know, I think of there's a baseball player. I think most people would still remember Cal Ripken Jr., but um, Cal Ripken Jr.'s broke a number of records and was a storied baseball player. I think he was with the Orioles, right? So
Yeah.
um, he was and I looked into it recently and like I want to learn more about him because what the word I heard was he was highly consistent. So he was a two-time American League MVP. He was a Golden Glove winner and a 19-time All-Star in, in the National Baseball League.
Holly.
And everything I read was he was highly respected on the field and off the field. So we know all that, and but the most interesting thing is that his greatest accomplishment is he broke the record and has the record for the most consecutive games played in
Oh
Major
yeah.
League Baseball in history. So he played 2,632 games. And I mean, he didn't show up to the park and sit on the bench. He played
Played.
in
Yeah.
every game. So you think of, and if you're not a baseball fan, it's not like football where it's once a week and then you get a bye every once in a while.
Yeah.
You could be playing. I'm not as into it as I used to be, but correct me if I'm wrong. You could play 3 or 4 times a week, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Um, so and what I read was it's considered the most unbreakable record in all of sports. It's the most difficult thing
That's
to
crazy.
do, and not
Right.
just in baseball. And he talks a lot about it. And at the end of the day, he showed up and he did what he had to do. And I've read about he physically he had a very tuned in physical fitness program and all the things because he knew he had to do a lot of things to keep himself on the field in playing.
Right.
And so here's my point. His consistency and keeping himself in the game and playing in 2,632 games in a row allowed him to be in 19 all-star games,
Right.
become an MVP,
Yeah.
to be a Golden Glove winner. That was the thing that allowed him to play at the level, because we all know players that came out for a year or two and either because of injury or because of distraction or whatever, they were the hottest thing on the planet for two
Yeah.
years, but they don't hold a ton of records because they weren't in it long enough to set any records. And it's
Right.
like, I want to set records. And they don't get set in the short term. So to allow yourself to do that,
Yeah.
putting your nose to the grindstone and not letting people um, convince you that there's a new, cooler thing out there to do or a new, quicker way to get there. A lot of it is just, you know, knocking away every day on the things that we figured out are the right things to do. And granted, me, Philip, we've worked together and I can make you crazy sometimes on constantly tweaking and making things better and better. You're
Yeah.
like, it's great. And you're not a good enough guy, but you're like, it's great. We need to be
Yeah.
building other stuff. And I'm like, but this could be better. So I'm not saying that you just set it and forget it and you just
Right.
show up and everything. But I do think that we are constantly looking for, the next thing. And a lot of leadership is, I hate to use this term, but I'm sure when Cal showed up every day at the same time, that can become, appear to be pretty boring. It's
Right.
not like I went on this trip and I saw this new thing and we're going to put this new program in. And it's like, but it's just the everyday things that we do. And it's trusting in not seeing results, trusting in God that God is working in the consistency and the discipline. And when I look at the leaders that I think, especially in the church, are the greatest leaders of our time, Chris Hodges, Craig Groeschel, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna leave a ton of people out, but just, the list is not doesn't go on and on, but there are more people on the list.
Right. Right.
And when I look at them, they are the most disciplined, consistent people I've ever
Yeah.
met. They
Yeah.
have a schedule. They don't give up on things. They're not switching directions every week. If anything, there are times where I've thought, and they've proved me wrong consistently, that even I was like, like, shouldn't we be looking for a different way to do this? And they're like, you know, this way works. We just need to get better at doing what we're
Right.
doing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, so I would encourage, not to be afraid of the consistent, not be afraid of the boring, and not to be afraid of, you're not going to be on anybody's like top, you know, the top leaders to watch this week. Those are usually people that have done flashy things. Nothing wrong with that. But, you have to be prepared not to be as limelight, because you're not doing it. Cal Ripken wasn't really doing anything that was on the news every other night. He was getting singles, doubles, and triples consistently
Yeah.
every game.
Yeah.
His batting average was never really high, never really low. It was really good for a long time.
Yeah. What I like about that is too, there's probably consistency with the right things, the things that build character, the things that build, you know, perspective, the investment in individuals, you know, um, there's a lot that plays into consistency when it talks about longevity,
Yep.
to want to do this for the long haul and to kind of set yourself up to have some of those patterns of repetition and um, you know, uh, I think even just how am I educating myself and what are the voices that I'm listening to? That's I think really important because if you do listen to some of those, shock jock, podcast, it's just like that's just reacting and responding to what's current versus some seasoned um I think some one leader I was listening to recently or heard at maybe a conference was saying, I don't read anything that from anybody that hasn't been dead for 100 years or something, something crazy like that. And I'm like, I get what he's saying. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd fully adopt that, but it's like there's something powerful about that. As like if it's lasted that long, it'll most likely last another 100.
Yep.
And so there is something refreshing even about that perspective. I think that puts me where I can get wrapped up in what's happening right now and what's happening in our world. And we talked a little bit about anticipating and looking ahead and seeing trends. But what's really cool is that scripture has transcended all of that. It will continue to transcend all of that. And that'll keep us rooted and anchored in what's most important, not just what feels important right now. So
Yep.
I just want to thank you for leading the way and showing an example of being steady, of being consistent, of being invested in individuals, not for anybody's sake but their sake, And I think that's what I'd encourage other people is find people who are consistent
Mm.
and surround yourself with them because that brings perspective to you as you're growing of how to do it right and how to do it right for the long haul. So
Yep.
thanks for being a great example of that, Phil.
Well, thanks for being the next generation of
Yeah.
carrying that on. I can't tell you how grateful I am for you every day, and just how you've, um, you know, not only carried on the consistency of, because it's not carrying on stuff that I created or anything else. It's really stuff that has been passed on
Right.
through generations to me, that I've tried to pass on to you and others, and you've taken it and added to it and contextualized it, and thought critically through it and adapted it to what's happening today, and have done that so well, and have a heart for helping people do that, which
Cool.
is all we're doing. We're adapting the things that have been learned What's the Bible say nothing new under the sun.
Yeah,
I
right.
feel like the older I get, the more I I appreciate and understand that. That's why I think working together, you and I have been able to do so much more than we could have apart from each other. And I think that's another thing I would want for leaders is to not just confer with each other, but actually, um, you know, actually do life together and partner in those things because we're so much better together.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to continue to carry that mantle and have you by my side and doing it. And I also know that there's a good, healthy, godly fear that you know where I live. So if I don't keep doing it, uh, thanks, Phil. So
Thank
much
you.
for the time, for the investment. Always grateful to have these coach conversations and learn from it. I know I'm better because of it.